Russia investigation.
Special Counsel Robert Mueller.
Paul Manafort.
Federal prosecutors have accused the president of violation of the federal campaign laws.
New reports that Special Counsel Robert Mueller will be finishing up his investigation.
The Russia investigation goes back perhaps decades to Donald Trump's business ties in the 80s and 90s in Russia. But for our purposes, we'll start around 2015 when Donald Trump announces his presidential campaign. We start to see the beginnings of Russian intervention trying to penetrate into Democratic email systems. This really comes to a head in 2016 as they actually hack into the Democratic National Committee. Around the same time, Donald Trump is encouraging the Russians.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
WikiLeaks starts to release those emails, embarrassing documents, one after the other, showing Hillary Clinton's speeches and John Podesta's pasta recipes, all kinds of things that throw the Hillary Clinton campaign on its heels. The Obama administration announces in October, as the campaign is getting even hotter, that Russia is responsible for the hacking of those emails. Donald Trump, as a candidate, questions that intelligence, questions whether the Russians are really involved, further raising suspicions. When Donald Trump wins the election, a huge surprise, we start to see more interactions between Donald Trump officials and Russian intelligence. Thanks to BuzzFeed, in January of 2017, we see the Steele dossier come out, this document that's been circulating in Washington for a long time among reporters. That document, with all kinds of yellow flags around it, suggests things between Donald Trump and Russia. Donald Trump takes office.
The office of President of the United States.
In February of 2017, Michael Flynn, the national security advisor to Donald Trump, is fired from his position after lying to Vice President Mike Pence and others in the Trump White House about his contacts with Russian officials. Come May of 2017, James Comey, the FBI director, is fired by President Trump. James Comey later goes on to say that Donald Trump actually asked him to drop that Michael Flynn investigation, which leads to obstruction of justice investigations, which leads to Robert Mueller's appointment just days after James Comey's firing.
I mean, this is the President of the United States with me alone saying, I hope this. I took it as this is what he wants me to do.
In July of 2017, the New York Times drops a big bombshell telling us about a Trump Tower meeting that happened during the campaign involving Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort, and some Russian officials offering dirt on Hillary Rodham Clinton. This meeting is very important because the Donald Trump campaign was repeatedly saying that they had no contact with Russian officials. We later learned that the Donald Trump Jr. had gotten emails from someone saying that they had Russian government help trying to help his campaign. By the fall of 2017, just months after Robert Mueller is on the job, things really start to heat up. This is when the criminal indictments begin. Paul Manafort, Donald Trump's campaign chairman, is indicted in the fall, along with his deputy, Rick Gates. We also learned that very same day that George Papadopoulos, a lower-ranking official from the Trump campaign, also was indicted a month before. By December of 2017, Michael Flynn has pled guilty to lying to the FBI as part of its investigation. Things pick up in 2018 when Robert Mueller continues to indict Russian nationals, a dozen of them,
for conspiring to interfere with the 2016 presidential election.
And actually, in a very detailed indictment, lays out how they hacked into the Democrats, how they released those emails. It's an indictment that's never reached any kind of major court actions because these 12 Russians have never come into the United States to actually face trial. In February of 2018, Rick Gates also pleads guilty at the same time that Robert Mueller throws new charges on money laundering and tax evasion at Paul Manafort, his partner. Rick Gates becomes a cooperator for the government and turns on Paul Manafort. In April of 2018, another bombshell happens when Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's longtime personal lawyer and fixer, sees his apartment, his home, and his offices raided by the FBI in New York City. Donald Trump and Michael Cohen stand together for a little while, but soon Michael Cohen shifts and becomes a cooperator for the government, saying he's not going to defend Donald Trump. In the summer of 2018, Paul Manafort goes on trial in Alexandria, Virginia. It's a 3-week trial. It's all about financial fraud, tax evasion, not really things related to Donald Trump, but the jury convicts Paul Manafort on 8 counts, and he pleads guilty soon thereafter in another case that he's dealing with in Washington, D.C., also becoming a cooperator for Robert Mueller and his investigators. He's meeting with his prosecutors. He's actually appearing before the grand jury. However, he lies to the prosecutors. Not a good idea. In late January of 2019, Donald Trump's longtime associate, Roger Stone, is indicted. FBI barges into his home in South Florida, takes him into custody.
There is no circumstance whatsoever under which I will bear false witness against the president.
Roger Stone has been charged with lying to Congress and obstructing justice, witness tampering, in his potential trial that could happen later this fall. Robert Mueller's charged 34 people and 3 companies so far in his investigation that's been going on since May of 2017. That includes a half a dozen people who have been close in Donald Trump's orbit, including his former campaign chairman, his former longtime lawyer, and one of his longest associates, Roger Stone.